The city of Foshan was known as a martial arts center. Various schools stood side by side, each competing to recruit students and demonstrate its superiority. Amidst that competition, there was one name that never showcased himself in public: Yip Man. A respected Wing Chun master. Coming from a wealthy background, he did not open a school, did not teach, and did not seek popularity. His days were spent practicing, gathering with friends, and spending time with his family. But everyone knows he is the best in this city. One day, someone came to Yip Man's house. It turned out to be Master Liao, a martial artist who had just opened a school in Foshan. His purpose was simple, bana kinasatataha, pasti pala, to invite him to train together, wanting to test his skills with Yip Man. He proposed a closed fight without witnesses. If Master Yip lost, then no one would know. Initially, Yip Man refused, not because of winning or losing, but because he was having a meal with his wife. Before the fight began, Master Liao was invited to join at the dining table. His presence felt awkward. During the meal, Ip Man's wife only watched their guest with a cold gaze. Even after the main course was finished, the atmosphere still hadn't warmed up. This is not the first time the wife has had to witness someone coming to the house just to test her husband's abilities. At the same time, a teenager named Yuan was trying to retrieve his kite that was stuck on Hitman's porch. Unintentionally, his position made him the only witness to the event that would occur a few meters in front of him. It was brief. Yip Man showed his dominance. His movements seemed simple, yet quick and precise, hard to match. Just a few moves and it was all over. Master Liao conceded and admitted his defeat. He requested one thing, that this defeat not be told to anyone. Yip Man nodded. Without many words, Master Liao left the house. The next day, news began to spread in a restaurant. Yuan couldn't resist sharing what he witnessed, Master Liao's defeat by Yip Man. The story spread quickly, much faster than expected. Not long after, Yip Man arrived at the same restaurant. He came to meet his business partner. However, the news of Liao's defeat had already reached the master's ears. His student told him what he had heard. Angry and feeling humiliated, Liao rushed to the restaurant to find Yuan. Master Liao's anger finally exploded. In front of many people, he scolded Yuan without giving a chance to explain. The situation heated up. Fortunately, Lin, Yuan's older brother and the restaurant owner, immediately intervened. But Master Liao's anger was already blazing. For Liao, the news of his defeat not only tarnished his pride, that also threatens the future of his school. He worries, who would want to learn from a master who lost? Lin asked his younger sibling to apologize, but Johan did not accept it. He felt he was just telling the truth, even challenging. Master Yip is upstairs. If Master Liao dares meet him, feeling continuously blamed, Johan ran upstairs. He met Ip Man directly, asking the master to explain to everyone that the fight did happen and Master Liao truly lost. But before the situation escalated, Lin pulled and scolded his younger brother. Even if the story is true, not all truths need to be exposed. Some things, if shared without consideration, can actually embarrass others. But Yuan remained upset. He didn't understand why he kept being blamed. Lin then chose an unexpected move. With one spontaneous gesture, he embarrassed his brother in public. Laughter erupted and Yuan left the restaurant. The tension was not over. A police officer named Lee arrived. Instead of calming the situation, he warned that anyone causing trouble in his area would be detained. Not stopping there, Tramkimaniamki Armontavati, in front of everyone, Lee belittled martial arts, considering it outdated and useless in modern times. While raising the gun, he tried to show who was in charge. The action left Inspector Lee speechless. Yip Man also acknowledged that Kung Fu can sometimes sound noisy, but that doesn't mean they are uncivilized. At home, Yip Man decided to help his friend and business partner, Cho, by providing capital to build a cotton factory.
That help is very meaningful, especially in difficult times. Amidst his busy schedule, Lin returned full of enthusiasm to demonstrate the new martial arts technique he had just learned. As usual, Yip Man accepted the small challenge. However, in the middle of the practice, his son approached. He came closer, waiting for attention, but Yip Man didn't notice him. He was too focused on the practice. Not a single word was spoken. From a distance, his wife could only watch in disappointment. Some neighbors watching asked Yip Man to repeat his movements, but that only caused his wife's anger to peak. Ontam mayanaki kami mayaka ato. A simple request from his wife, a little time and attention. She wants Yip Man to take the time to look at the picture their child made. Apros di albiat tanisanata. Not a big deal, but for the wife, it is important. More important than spending the whole day just playing with his friends. The next day, the city of Foshan received unusual guests led by someone named Jin. They did not come to visit but to challenge. Their goal was clear: to test the strength and defeat the Kung Fu masters in the city. The first challenge was issued to Master Zhao. With an arrogant style, Zhao accepted and the fight ensued. However, arrogance was not enough in front of Jin. In a short time, Zhao was defeated. That victory was just the beginning. They continued to move from school to school, even using sharp weapons. The local Kung Fu masters tried to hold on, but the result was the same. One by one, they were defeated. Meanwhile, Yinka Perkampum and Nirmalum Yilin came to Yip Man's house. He brought news about a foreign group that came without respect, challenging and defeating the masters one by one. Lin knows if this situation is left unchecked, Naman the good name of Foshan martial arts could collapse. At the same time, another fight is taking place. This time it was Master Liao's turn to step forward. He became the last hope after the other masters were defeated. Technique after technique he unleashed. Every move was executed with force, but Jin was not an easy opponent. In the end, Master Liao also fell. After defeating all the masters in the city of Foshan, Jin and his followers celebrated their victory. They boasted, laughed, calling the local masters too weak. They were confident that glory was just a matter of time. Their names would be known, money would come, all students would learn from them. However, their arrogance was disturbed by the old voice of the shop owner. He said, "Don't get too cocky before you defeat Yip Man." Those words immediately silenced the atmosphere, arousing curiosity. Without hesitation, Jin immediately headed to Yip Man's house, not only accompanied by his followers, but also by a crowd of curious onlookers.
Wanting to see if Jin is truly unbeatable, without much ado, Jin issued a challenge. But Yip Man refused. He saw no reason to fight for a stranger's ego. At the Tiva door, his wife intervened firmly, ordering Jin and his group to leave. Feeling insulted, Jin mocked whether Yip Man was afraid of his wife. Yip Man looked calm, replying that no husband is afraid of his wife. Hindi, what exists is a husband who respects his wife. However, Jin did not stop there. He shouted to the wife, saying he would not kill her husband. He even swore not to use his hands, as if Yip Man was not a worthy opponent. That insult was the limit. The wife did not remain silent. One sentence came out, cold and calm. Permission has been granted. The pride of Foshan will be at stake. Not long after, Inspector Lee arrived. This time, he did not come as an officer, but as a citizen pleading, "You must defend our honor." People were asked to leave. The house door was shut tight. No audience, no witnesses. Inside, Jin, the fighter from the north, faces the Wing Chun master Yip Man. No cheers, no applause. The fight begins. The fight started to get out of control. Furniture was damaged, items shattered everywhere. Although Jin stated he would replace them, the same incident happened again. This time the table was destroyed and Yip Man, the karamanin, taparapanyitar, still holding on, not retaliating. At this moment, Yip Man's son comes out with his small bicycle, delivering a simple message from his mother. If father does not attack, all of her belongings will be destroyed. Namtim manbay namtam. A simple sentence, yet it pierced Jin's heart. This time there was no more small talk, no more reason to hold back. The real fight had just begun. Ip Man's relentless attacks overwhelmed Jin. Desperate, Jin tried a sly move, secretly drawing a sword. The sharp weapon was now in his hand, but Ip Man remained calm. He did not retaliate with a similar weapon. What he chose was merely a feather duster nearby, sharp against light, steel against rattan. But what makes the difference is not the tool used, but who uses it. Until finally, Jin had no opening left to attack or even defend. After the fight that took place without an audience, Jin finally admitted his defeat. There was nothing that needed to be explained. His bruised face was enough evidence of who lost. He left with his head bowed in shame before the people of Foshan, then returned to his hometown. Since then, the people of Foshan not only respected Ip Man, they regarded him as a symbol of the city's pride. Even in the market, he often received free goods as a token of gratitude. However, that peaceful time did not last long. In the year 1937, dark shadows came from the north. The Japanese forces invaded China, and Foshan became one of its victims. Buildings were leveled, factories destroyed. Thousands of people starved while others were shot without reason. Yip Man's grand house was forcibly taken and turned into a military headquarters. In the midst of that chaos, Yip Man lost everything: wealth, status, even a sense of security. But one thing he still held tightly: his family. They were forced to move to a place that was nearly collapsing. No luxury, no certainty. Once morning, his wife wanted to cook, but they were out of rice. Not wanting to see his family starve, Yip Man took the only valuable item left: a watch. He went to the market, exchanged the watch for a handful of rice. By chance, he met Chow. his old friend who still runs the cotton factory. Amazingly, the factory is still standing, but Chow faces a big challenge. The occupation has cut off distribution, sales are sluggish, and debts are starting to pile up. Chow offered Yip Man a place to stay and a job to help him manage the factory, but the offer was declined. Yip Man did not want to owe anyone a favor. He did not want to be a burden. He chose to go home, sit with his family, and enjoy a simple dinner, just as it is. A few days later, another trial came. His wife fell ill, not only due to physical condition, but because of the mounting worries about food that was no longer sufficient, about a future that was no longer clear. Yip Man tried to calm her, but the guilt and responsibility as the head of the family made him decide he would look for a job, no matter how difficult it was. That very day, Yip Man walked from one place to... However, the answer he always received was the same. Rejection. Until his step stopped, the boss of the coal mining workers group recognized him. In the midst of the silence and dust of the mine, Yip Man met Lin again, an old acquaintance who now shared the same fate. Now they were both laborers. They supported each other, shared stories, making the suffering feel a little lighter. Yet still, hunger continued to loom. When lunchtime arrives, all the workers receive their food rations, but Yip Man chooses to save his lunch, a piece of sweet potato, to take home to his children and wife. He is willing to endure hunger just to see his family eat, even if only a little. Seeing this sacrifice, Lin is touched. Without many words, he offered some of his food to the teacher. That's where the warm conversation between them began. Lin talked about his brother who never returned since they argued in the past. A trivial argument, but enough to cause regret. He wants to apologize, but doesn't know if the opportunity still exists. Lin even prepared the gift, a small tin box, but now it's lost somewhere. Before having a chance to look for it, a group of Japanese soldiers suddenly arrived, and with them appeared an unexpected figure, Li Zhao, a former Foshan police officer who now works as a translator for the Japanese forces. Along with him came Colonel Sato. They brought a message from a Japanese general named Miura, a karate master who had just established a combat arena. He heard that the people of Foshan are known for their excellence in martial arts. Thus, the idea of an intercultural martial arts competition was born. Local kung fu experts are invited to fight against Japanese karate fighters. The prize is a bag of rice for each victory, an enticing offer amidst the famine. Many were interested, some even excited, including Lin. However, Yip Man immediately warned, "Do not look for trouble," but Lin had a different view. He knew the risks, but he also knew one thing that was more pressing, an empty stomach. So with determination that perhaps came from desperation, Lin still recklessly decided to fight. Upon arriving at the arena, Lin witnessed a moment that sparked hope. Master Liu, one of the renowned kung fu teachers, is fighting against a Japanese karateka. With well-trained techniques, he managed to achieve victory and bring home a very valuable prize, a sack of rice. That victory apparently ignited General Miura's spirit. He declared his desire to enter the arena, not only to test his skills, but also to demonstrate the superiority of Japanese martial arts. Thus, he issued an open challenge. 3 Foshan fighters would face him at once. Win or lose, they would still be given rice. The offer tempted many people. Lin, along with 2 other fighters, immediately volunteered. However, on stage, they immediately realized that this was not an ordinary match. 2 of them gave up, feeling the opponent was too strong, but Lin was different. He got up and kept fighting.
Unfortunately, determination alone is not enough to face Miura's strength. Even though his friends have admitted defeat, Lin remains persistent. The determination in his heart does not match the wounds on his body.
The general's response was much later. In that arena, Lin fell and never got up again.
The next day, Ip Man returned to work at the mine.
Amidst his busyness, he found a tin box, an item Lin had previously searched for, but something was odd. Lin was nowhere to be seen. Suspicion began to grow when the fellow workers couldn't explain where Lin had gone. During the break, Li Jiao came again, inviting him to fight in the arena. Yip Man, sensing something was wrong, approached Li and asked directly, "Where is Lin?" But Li just remained silent, his face nervous, unable to meet his gaze. He only answered softly, "I don't know." Yip Man, starting to feel something was amiss, finally decided to go to the arena.
There he saw Master Liao had just won again, but Liao was not satisfied. He asked Hui, "Hitam, Parama," he asked to fight again, this time against 3 people at once. General Mayura agreed. A reckless decision that ended fatally. Master Liao was beaten badly. He lost and then surrendered. But when he was about to take his rise, a tragedy occurred. The sound of gunfire was heard. Wah, samati tammo watidia. A Dansga gunshot shattered the silence. Dato, without warning, Colonel Sato raised his weapon and shot Master Liao dead right in front of everyone. The death left the entire room frozen. Even General Miura was furious. Parana, for him, this place was only for martial arts, not unilateral executions. He immediately threatened Sato, no more shooting allowed. Even so, the match continued. However, for Yip Man, that event became a turning point. He realized that Lin most likely had suffered the same fate. A sense of loss, anger, and regret blend into one. Without hesitation, Yip Man shouted, demanding that the arena doors be opened, his anger no longer contained. He volunteered to fight, then stepped into the arena asking for something no one ever imagined, to fight 10 people at once, or I don't get demoan unten tisanti kinetaram. His request was granted. 10 karate fighters were prepared, standing tall, lined up, ready to face one person. Before everything began, Yip Man took a small piece of sweet potato from his pocket. He placed it calmly on the floor, not as a symbol, but as a reminder of hunger, of his family. Then stepped into the center of the arena. His gaze was sharp, full of focus, his stare cold, but behind it was a fire of anger that could no longer be contained, and the fight began. Yip Man wasted no time. His movements were quick and precise. Every step was full of confidence. Every punch contained anger. The Daka collar was long buried. One by one, his opponents fell. No doubt, no mercy. Yip Man beat them thoroughly. In a short time, 10 fighters were rendered powerless. No one could match him. No one could stop him. Everyone was silent. Even General Mayura seemed amazed by that extraordinary ability. 10 bags of rice were given, 1 for each opponent defeated. General Miura asked him to come back, but Yip Man refused. Hintafamba. His arrival was not for the rice. Intakina. Instead, Yip Man only took 1 bag of rice belonging to Liao, a teacher who had previously died tragically in the arena, and handed it to his family as a final tribute. Hantata.
Not long after, Lee warned Yip Man to be careful of the Japanese soldiers. However, the warning was not well received. A hard slap landed on Lee's face. It was not just emotion, but a form of disappointment. In Yip Man's eyes, Lee was a traitor, someone who let his own people die to stay on the wrong side. Lee tried to defend himself. He was just a translator. He also needed to eat. For Lee, their deaths had nothing to do with him. After all the tragedies that happened, Yip Man returned home with heavy steps. In his hand, there was only a piece of sweet potato, the only thing he could bring home for his family. Not a victory he celebrated, nor pride he carried, just exhaustion and restrained sadness. However, behind all that, there is something far more meaningful waiting for him at home, his wife. She only saw her husband's injured hand and treated it without saying much. That night, Yip Man was deep in thought. All this time, he had been practicing kung fu for years. But for what? He feels useless, unable to do anything. Yet from there, an awareness emerges. Behind all the loss, behind the unseen wounds, there is still one thing that cannot be taken away by anyone. A loyal family and love that still waits. On the other side of the city, chaos did not only come from foreign troops. Jin appeared with a different face. He was no longer a street fighter, but now the leader of a group of robbers. Surprisingly, Lin's younger brother, Yuan, who had been missing for a long time, turned out to have joined Jin's group. They seized the vehicle and without hesitation headed straight to Mr. Chow's cotton factory. Their goal was clear. They wanted money. The goods they seized were exchanged for ransom, but Chow couldn't provide anything. The cotton hadn't been sold and there was no money, yet logic no longer had a place. Jin and his men didn't believe and violence became the answer. Chow was beaten, assaulted in front of the workers who didn't know what to do. Seeing his father being beaten, Yao, Chow's son, hurried to seek help. He ran to Yip Man's house with only one hope, assistance. Yip Man immediately took action, but unfortunately, it was too late. Jin and his group had already left. They only left one promise: they would return, and this time, not just to intimidate. In the midst of despair, Chow asked for something unusual, for Yip Man to teach them martial arts, not for revenge, but to survive, and for the first time, Yip Man nodded. The next day, the cotton factory, usually quiet with the sound of machines, was now filled with the sound of breathing and stomping feet.
Wing Chun training began, day by day. With wages, their bodies are trained, not only as laborers, but also as fighters. However, threats kept coming, this time from the Japanese military. General Miura was furious. Why didn't Ip Man come again? Lee tried to cover up his whereabouts, but his loyalty was tested with torture. Blow after blow he received, until finally, under pressure, he was forced to reveal everything. One day, while Yip Man was playing with his son, he was surprised by the arrival of Leah. With a face full of wounds, Lee delivered a message. General Miura wanted him back in the arena. Yip Man refused, but that answer no longer mattered. Colonel Sato appeared with soldiers carrying weapons. The Battle of the Gun was aimed at Yip Man's child. The situation heated up, especially when Sato was captivated by the beauty of Yip Man's wife. He tried to get closer with unspoken intentions. That was the limit. In a matter of seconds, Sato and his men were unconscious. Realizing that the situation was no longer safe, Lee quickly helped Yip Man's family escape, hiding them in a safe place, but his actions came at a high price. Delica. When he returned to the Japanese headquarters, Lee was severely beaten by Sato for allegedly letting Yip Man escape. Despite his battered body, his sacrifice was not in vain. He had saved the family. That night, Lee still came to see Yip Man just to make sure they were all safe.
days passed. Jin and the troublemakers returned to the cotton factory, but they didn't know that the workers were no longer passive victims. They had been trained, ready to fight back. A clash broke out. The workers held their ground as best as they could, but courage alone wasn't enough. They were merely beginners in martial arts. When the situation was almost out of control, Yip Man appeared. A brief silence. Jin realized. No wonder the workers dared to rebel. They had been trained by the person who once thwarted his ambition in Foshan. Frustration turned into vengeance. Jin did not want to feel hungry again, did not want to suffer again. One command was given. Attack Yip Man. His men hesitated for a moment. They knew who they were up against. But orders are orders. Axes were raised and the fight broke out again. Yip Man stood alone, yet one by one they fell. He managed to seize a bamboo stick. When the fight heated up, Jin asked Yuan to step in. Yip Man just glanced, signaling don't. But Yuan, still overshadowed by fear and confusion, finally stepped forward. Together with Jin, they attacked, armed with axes and steel forks. Even so, the result was the same. Yip Man defeated them both. The fight ended. Jin retreated in defeat. Yip Man slowly approached Yuan. From his pocket, he took out a small can, Lin's can. Urul takot hu, while revealing the bitter truth, Lin had been killed by the Japanese. Inside it was a plastic kite, the only memory of their past that remained. Yuan was speechless, hands trembling, eyes glistening. In silence, he realized he was on the wrong path. That night, Lee came with a panicked face. He approached Ip Man, warning, "Don't go near the cotton mill. General Miura and the Japanese troops are there. Their goal is clearly to capture Ip Man." At the mill, the workers were detained. Chu was beaten, forced to reveal Yip Man's whereabouts. But before it was too late, the person they were looking for appeared, Yip Man. The situation turned tense. Colonel Sato, still holding a grudge, immediately pointed a gun at him. But Miura stopped him. Instead of killing Manila Bungway, Miura had another plan. He wanted Yip Man to serve Namatung, teaching Kung Fu to the Japanese soldiers. In return, his life would be spared. Yip Man flatly refused. He would never teach the Japanese soldiers. Instead, he challenged Miura. If Miura really wanted to see him fight, then he would fight him one-on-one. The challenge was not immediately answered. Yip Man was taken to the headquarters. Before leaving, he left a message for Chow. Save his wife and child. Take them out of Foshan, far from danger. At the headquarters, Colonel Sato questioned General Miura's decision. According to him, there is no honor in fighting against the enemy. Just execute it, but Miura has a different view. This is about honor. Yip Man challenged him and refused the challenge. It's the same as admitting defeat to him. However, for Sato, this concerns the dignity of the Japanese empire, not personal honor. General Miura was offended, staring at Sato. Do you think I will lose? That night, Miura came to Yip Man's cell himself. He brought food, convincing Yip Man, the fight tomorrow will be fair, witnessed by many people so that all of Foshan knows. Japanese karate is superior to Chinese kung fu, but Yip Man refuses. Japan is occupying his country, killing his people. He pushes the tray away. The next morning, Chow carried out Yip Man's message. He took Yip Man's wife and child out of the city. However, during the journey, the wife cried.
tears flowed full of regret. She felt she had never truly supported her husband as a martial artist, and now this might be their final farewell.
She pleaded to return.
The day of the fight arrived, and the people of Foshan filled the arena. Everyone wanted to witness one thing, the fight between two big names. General Miura against Yip Man.
There is an unseen threat.
Of the night before Martanmakahmei, Dukhamumei Hadatihain Satadiamot, Colonel Sato gave an ultimatum. Yip Man must lose or die. Even Lee suggested the same for his safety, but for Yip Man, this is not about winning or losing. This is about honor, about the dignity of a nation being trampled. He steps forward, unafraid, uncompromising, and the fight begins. The fight between Yip Man and General Miura is no longer about who is stronger. It is a symbol of the nation's dignity. Two figures stand in the arena, representing two worlds that are opposing each other. Attack after attack strikes. Yep, technique after technique is unleashed. No mercy, no hesitation. Blow after blow continues to land on Miura's body. From a distance, Colonel Sato began to feel uneasy, his hand gripping a pistol, ready to pull the trigger on the captain. But Yip Man didn't care. He knew this victory had to be achieved, and at one decisive moment, a powerful combination attack struck Miura. The general's body was thrown, falling to the ground. The arena erupted with cheers of victory. Foshan rejoiced, but the happiness vanished in an instant. Suddenly, the sound of gunfire pierced the air. A bullet penetrated Ip Man's chest. Colonel Sato pulled the trigger. The master's body fell, blood flowed. Silence turned into panic. Amid the chaos, Lee reacted. He grabbed the gun and shot back. His bullet pierced the colonel's neck, killing him instantly, and hysterical screams erupted from the crowd. They scattered, breaking through the barricade. In the crowd, Cho took Yip Man and his family out of Foshan. Yip Man survived, but the wounds on his body will always be a symbol of an unyielding struggle. And finally, on August 15th, 1945, Japan surrendered unconditionally. The war ended. China regained independence after 8 years of occupation. 4 years later, Yip Man started a new life in Hong Kong. It was there that he established his first Wing Chun school. He not only taught fighting techniques but also instilled self-respect. From Yip Man's hands, a new generation was born, including a student who would later carry his name worldwide.
Bruce Lee.